Hello everyone. Good morning on this bright Sunday morning. I am Dr. Anupama from Ashta Ayurvedic Center, which was started by my husband Dr. Santosh in 1997. From the beginning of our practice, diet and lifestyle advice has been an integral part of our prescription. I see many of our patients who have joined this webinar. I'm sure they can vouch for this. They all know how particular we are about Pathya as a part of our treatment. It's a discussion throughout the follow-up consultations. And in the first consultation, we give as much importance to the diet and lifestyle advice. We go through their entire daily routine. We try to restructure it. We try to, not just have this, don't have this. It could be the gap between your dinner and your sleep timings. It could be what you take first thing in the morning. So this is a big part of our conversation during our consultation. So, and whenever patients come to us to explore Ayurveda for their health conditions, first thing we always make this effort to educate the patients that Ahara, Vihaara and Oushadha is the principal line of treatment of Ayurveda. That is what we're actually trying to say is it is not like replacing your homeopathy pill or the allopathic pill with an Ayurvedic pill. It's not like that. So for the line of treatment is equally Ahara, Vihara and Oushadha. And sometimes after your condition is better, after you've finished the medicine course. What I mean by Ahara, Vihara, Oushadha is food, lifestyle and medicine. So once you have finished the medicine course and once you have tried and followed the Ahara Vihara, that is diet and lifestyle advice, and finished with your medicine course, the Ahara itself can become medicine later for you. That itself, you don't need to take medicine. That itself, the Ahara and Vihara changes you have made, which you can continue later, and which will help you to maintain your disease condition, stay healthy further. So you can see how important it is that all three are equally important as a line of treatment. So Ayurveda, unlike many other sciences, does not really depend on the medicine part to maintain health. It encourages you to take responsibility for your health by working on the food and lifestyle habits prescribed by you to you by your doctor, which could be the cause of the condition or which could be encouraging your disease condition. And while you're working on this, you will arrive at what kind of food, what kind of lifestyle changes, what are the changes which are working for me, and what does not work for me. This is the real treatment. This is the real cure. That is how you will arrive at a place where you know that you can manage your condition or you can heal your condition on your own. Empowering patients to do that is what the Ayurvedic line of treatment is all about. And most often, we all know the connection between food and health. Like we always say, we have to eat healthy to stay healthy. So what it also extends to is if we are not eating healthy or our food is not wholesome enough or we are eating something which is unsuitable for us, it obviously can result in a disease. So when you're trying to treat that disease, if you're not thinking of the food and lifestyle at all, how is it even a complete treatment? So the connection between food, health, and disease is undeniable. So when we understand this, probably I think we will take the diet and lifestyle advice also more as seriously as we take medicines. Because I see during my clinical practice that taking medicines, the willingness to take medicines is good because the patients believe that this is what will cure them. And sometimes the diet and lifestyle advice is taken as optional, and sometimes it's a half-hearted attempt to imbibe them in their prescription during their treatment. So once we understand that all these three parts are equally important, I believe that patients will take them more seriously and give a lot of importance to that, which can also help them once the medicine course is over. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Santosh to talk about his clinical experience about Pathya.
Hello. Hello. I'm Dr. Santosh, I'm founder of the Shrestha Ayurvedic Center, and I've been practicing for the last 26 years now. This is the 26th year actually. And in the last 26 years, any patient asked, they would actually vouch that, yes, that's the first thing I talk. When they walk in and they talk about their disease and they introduce themselves, and then the first thing what we say is, yes, let's talk about your lifestyle. Let's talk about changing your way you look at it. The disease has started from this point. Let's change that. And that starts from changing your timing of food, to what not to be eaten, how to be eaten, how much to be eaten, when to be eaten, all those things. That forms what we call as a diet plan, or in more general, it's Pathya. So what is Pathya? Primarily a good food which is wholesome and which is suitable for you and which keeps you healthy. That's exactly what we call as a Pathya. Why do we recommend it? Yes, there are a lot of reasons as to why we recommend it, because food is what decides what we are. A good, healthy food keeps us healthy. And when we go wrong in that, yes, it actually brings diseases. Now, this is how we see as any time whenever we are addressing a disease. Or so importance of Pathyam is something which has a lot of, what do you call, the small bits and pieces about it as to when to eat, etc. According to Ayurveda, when you're looking at it, it says uh, food that is responsible for health. That's Pathyam. That's how we call it as. And to reduce, why do we use it when during the treatment is primarily to reduce the burden what is caused because of the food. For example, let's say when I'm treating somebody with acidity, and I am prescribing them certain medicines to reduce the acidity. And while you indulge into things which are spicy, like pickles or chaat masalas, pani puris, etc., well, in spite of giving the strongest medicine, we don't see the response of it happening there. And therefore, to reduce the burden of the body while treating a disease, it's important that you follow a Pathya properly. There are other reasons also as to why we say Pathyam has to be followed. So when we treat a disease, there are many aspects of it. Like medicines usually work in a particular direction towards healing the disease, and you indulge into something which works exactly opposite it actually inhibits the functions of the medicines. And to reduce the action of, to reduce the or to improve the action of the medicines, we insist on removing all those items which causes or which facilitates or which contributes to the formation of the disease. This is how we give importance to Pathyam. Of course, there are many other things also attached to that, but I can bring it out right now only so much, but we'll see as and how we move on progress. If at all anything else to be added, I'll come back to that.
Yes, yes. While we provide diet guidelines to our patients in form of diet chart, and we try to explain to them about the logic behind it and how they can use it, the diet advice in their own food culture. They may be North Indians, South Indians, vegetarians, vegans, and all that. We try to consider all that when we are giving a diet advice. But still, we feel that some patients need a little more time, little more hand holding in terms of recipes and more hand holdings, restructuring their daily routine or sleep hygiene, and in so many other ways. Basically, restructuring their entire diet and lifestyle. We feel that much more is needed. So because we understand the importance of this when it comes to the outcome of the treatment, now we are taking it a step further and we are offering Ayurvedic diet coaching for people who need maybe in the multiple 3-4 sessions to understand what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what to cook, how to eat. And sometimes, because our diet advice is mostly food items to avoid and food items which are recommended, how to actually process them in a way which is digestible for them, and individualized advice is needed. So we are offering this Ayurvedic diet coaching, and we are collaborating with Rashmi for this purpose. She's an integrative health coach. Now we are mentoring her in the Ayurvedic diet way of diet. She's worked with many patients over the years with integrative health. So it's not very different from Ayurvedic way, but still we are collaborating with each other. So we are on the same page and she can help our patients. And when she's working with our patients, we give her a brief about what kind of condition they have and what is it that we advise for this patient. And she takes it further. She can give multiple sessions where she can really handhold them into it. Even in terms of recipes, taking pictures of what she has cooked and asking them to cook, and like an accountability partner, because sometimes you need that kind of help. And this is how we are collaborating with Rashmi and bringing in the Ayurvedic diet coaching. As of now, many patients have already benefited from this, and the rest Rashmi will tell you. Over to you, Rashmi.
Thank you, Dr. Anupama. Hello, everyone. My name is Rashmi. I graduated from IIN, that is Institute for Integrative Nutrition, New York. And I have studied and worked in subjects of nutrition science, Ayurvedic dietetics, and functional medicine and coaching as well. And over the last decade, I've worked with clients from different medical histories, backgrounds, goals, and help them, coach them with their lifestyle, food, and uh, uh, yeah, and many other aspects, as doctor mentioned. So now I'm being mentored by Dr. Anupama and Dr. Santosh, and in Ayurvedic nutrition and dietetics. So that's been like an absolute joy being mentored by them and working with them. And this collaboration happened very naturally, as doctor mentioned, because we were, as a family, looking for a very good, good Ayurvedic doctor, and that's how we came across Dr. Santosh and Dr. Anupama. And we had some nagging issues that actually they were able to solve, and the principles matched, and it was just some serendipity, I can say. And as doctor also mentioned, they also wanted to help their patients deeply, and to go further and handhold their patients to help them with their lifestyle, food. And that's when this collaboration happened, and it's been a beautiful journey so far, and looking forward to having a great journey with them. And um, uh, so let's move on to our topic for today. That's the 8 principles of Ayurveda, food principles of Ayurveda. So the first thing is Prakriti. Um, every food item has an inherent nature. So here we are talking about the nature, is that impact that it has on our body when we consume it. Um, so we can choose foods based on our digestive ability and our disease condition also. So for example, in case of acidity, like doctor mentioned, we can avoid foods which are sour, salty, spicy, oily, and hot in potency. And we can see some foods here on the screen, like urad dal is a bit heavier, and moong dal is much lighter and easier to digest. And jackfruit is a heavier fruit to digest, and watermelon is lighter. So if this comes into contact with our body, this a little heavier. Some foods are little heavier, and some foods are very easy and light to digest. So if I'm in a diseased condition, maybe I can choose some lighter foods. And if my digestion is great, then I can choose between all these foods. So vegetables like ashgard is very cooling and has therapeutic properties. And uh, and the brinjal has is hot in potency. And uh, yes, and if suppose if somebody is in a diseased condition, gourd vegetables are very light, very easy to digest. It suits everybody. In this way, for example. So the next one is Karana. Karana is, we have different methods to cook or process our food to actually make it, easier to cook, or, the change. When we process, the food actually changes its properties, becomes easier to digest, desirable, tasty, nutritious also. So let's see some examples here. Curd, for example, is very heavy. Um, I would request everybody to stay muted. Thank you. So curd is very heavy and Shita. So it's more it when we actually do a simple churning of the curd, its molecular structure changes and it becomes very light. For example, when we actually churn it properly and remove the butter, if any, the buttermilk becomes very light and it's not shita anymore, and it's very light and easy to digest. So this is a very good example of how a molecular structure of the food changes by doing a simple process uh, of churning. So curd, for example, can be eaten as a delicacy, not like a staple. So buttermilk is much better option to uh, take it on a regular basis, or easy to digest, also depending upon your condition. So when we take roasting, for example, roasting helps make the food lighter and easy to digest again. So for example, we can think about roasting rice to make ganji. Rice becomes very light. When we roast nuts, it again becomes easier to digest, becomes very light, rather than having it um, in the raw form. And also when we also do roast spices, right, to make masala, so that's more digestible and more tasty as well. So we can use tawa um, for cooking our foods, processing our foods. So when we use tawa, the food becomes more lighter again, easier to digest. And we make dosas, rotis on the tawa. So when we use the tawa, it actually, for example, dosas are actually better digestible, lighter than idlis. Here we are talking about simple dosas, not the masala dosa, because actually the tawa makes it, the heat and the tawa makes it much easier to digest. Also, for the fact that dosas has lesser urad dal than idlis, it makes it very light. And with the help of heat, we of course cook our foods and make it easy to digest, because raw foods not all of us can digest. We need a very good agni to digest the raw foods, so we'll have to look into ourselves. So raw foods can be cooked by using heat, and that's how we cook our foods. um, let's see the flavoring part of it. By flavoring our foods, we make it very tasty, we make it digestible again. um, it also helps break down certain, helps digest certain food groups like protein. Like for example, marination of meat helps break down the protein and helps to for easier digestion. And flavoring with jeera powder, chaat masala, ajwain, hing, and ginger, all these things makes it absolutely tasty and also easier to digest. So we can take examples of, whenever we cook potatoes, we use either hing or ajwain. Like when we make aloo parathas, so ajwain is used. So it actually helps the potatoes digest and avoids uh, acidity and things like that. And when we are cooking avrekadu, like hyacinth beans, so it's highly gassy. So when we use, garlic along with that, it actually makes it easier to digest that food. So also the milk, which is heavier to digest, when we flavor it with turmeric and pepper, it makes it absolutely better, in a better form to digest the food. So, and soaking is one form of making the food easy to cook and also easier to digest. So, we soak grains, pulses, legumes, dals, and also nuts. Uh, of course, millets. We can soak them to make it easier to digest. For example, in nuts, when we soak them, they have this phytic acid, which is an anti-nutrient. So when we consume nuts directly, it is hard to digest by our body, and the nutrients, the enzymes don't really get activated. See, when we plant a seed, for germination, it needs the contact with water, right? So soaking works on the similar concept. So when we soak the nuts for a longer period of time, the enzymes that gets activated, and it's much easier to digest, and also becomes highly nutritious that way. The same works for millets and grains and legumes too. So some people have you know more acidity and more gassy they're in nature when they consume legumes which are hard to digest. So by soaking them and then cooking them, sprouting also is a way to make it more digestible and more nutritious. So also another thing that we do traditionally to make the legumes or dals more at the grains more digestible is fermenting. So when we soak and then grind it, or for example, dosa idli batters, when we ferment it, it actually becomes more digestible and more nutritious. It's more absorbable by our body. So also to keep in mind that how much to ferment and how long to keep it, and how it's always best to use it fresh and not keep it for too long and then keep using the fermented batter, right? So, and also storing is a way, storing of rice, storing of tamarind, for example, makes the food better in a way. For example, storing of rice, the old rice has lesser starch than the new rice. So it's always better to use a stored rice. Tamarind, for example, especially in Ayurveda, we talk about it. If you taste the tamarind, which is just new, it's very sharp, it's very tangy and sharp. So when the tamarind gets older, it actually becomes more gentle and easier to digest. So we can use these methods to make our foods more nutritious, more desirable, tasty, and also healthy. Let's move on to the next, which is Samyoga. Samyoga is, when we bring different foods together, it actually transforms into a food which has a totally different property. So this property may be completely different when they're individual foods, but when they're brought together, their properties might completely, in they're brought together, there is a different property that changes, and it can bring about a positive or a negative impact. So let's understand with the help of few examples here. A good positive property that we can think of when we bring two foods together is Misha Amalaki. When we bring turmeric and amla in equal quantities, they are individually not anti-diabetics. So, but when they are brought together in equal quantities, they are anti-diabetics, and their property is extremely beneficial. So if anyone is pre-diabetic, so it's very useful to take 1 teaspoon of both in hot water early in the morning, and it has a great effect on our body. So we can also see some pictures here, which are examples of some incompatible combinations. So individually they are great foods, but when they are brought together, for example, warm water and honey, almost everybody I talk to hear from, they have this habit of taking warm water with honey and lemon. So what I understood is, according to Ayurveda, when these two foods are brought together, it's highly incompatible. So it can have a negative impact on our body. So when ghee and honey are actually brought together in equal quantities, they do also have a negative impact. So it's better to avoid these combinations. And milk and fruits, they're now fruits are great, taken very healthy, but in some cases But when it's brought together with milk, it's an incompatible combination. And also when we eat seafoods and then add curd after that meal, so it becomes highly incompatible and has a very negative effect on our body. So let's also understand the right quantity uh, of foods to consume. So Ayurveda actually here we also refer to the quantity of food consumed and also the quantity of individual ingredients used in a particular food. So for example, we see, yes, Ayurveda recommends, consuming food, um, basically filling ourselves 2/3 of our stomach only with food and not completely full. So there you can see here that the 1/3 we can consume as food and the 1/3 as liquids and another part left empty. So that's actually when we observe ourselves, when we eat this way, we feel much lighter and much vibrant actually. So when we eat actually full, it becomes, we can feel the difference. I'm sure all of you agree in this. So also the foods with lesser ingredients are easier to digest, especially in a diseased condition. It's always better to choose food with simpler and lesser ingredients. It's easier to digest. And for example, if we take an example of khichdi and bisi bele bath, so pretty much the ingredients are similar, but bisi bele bath uses more ingredients in the dish, whereas khichdi is much simpler. So we also talking about quantity here, we can eat a little more of khichdi than the quantity of bisi bele bath because the ingredients are more. And also if somebody is in sickness, so when we are cooking khichdi, we can also modify the quantity of dal that's being used. So we can reduce the dal usage so that the body adapts, absorbs it better. It's easy to digest in a diseased condition. So another classic example that we come across is, pulkas and puris. So though they are made with the same ingredients, we can eat a little more of pulkas than the puris because puris, of course, is, fried in oil. But actually, we go the other way around mostly because puris are probably tastier. So we end up eating more of puris than the pulkas. So something to remember is, the lesser, simpler cooked foods are better. We can eat a little more of them, and the complex ones can, the heavier ones, we can eat a less quantity of them. And also when we take example of rice and millets, so we can always eat, millets can be half the quantity of rice because millets also has a lot of fiber and it's kind of heavier in the sense the quantity. So the quantity of millets, half the quantity of rice is pretty much enough uh, to actually satisfy. And also we can't be so impractical. We also are fond of sometimes snacks like sweets and deep fried foods. So also a very important thing to remember with respect to the quantity is the snacks, so like deep fried foods, sweets, festive foods, all these can be in moderation. It can be eaten less frequently and also in lesser quantities and not confused here to be eaten like a staple food. we observe today that a lot of people eat these foods more like staple food, which actually imbalances our health. So it's important to remember that our staple food is consumed in more frequency and more quantities than the snacks. So I would request everyone to stay mute.
Hello.
Thank you.
This game, I don't know. I'm on the call also. No.
So the next would be Desha. Desha refers to the place or habitat of the food item and also the person who is consuming the food. So local food is always more acceptable for our body, and some examples to think about here is as the oils that we use for cooking. So like for example, coconut oil, groundnut oil, all these oils are more acceptable or more digestible for South Indians than North Indians. So it's important to not go by what is good, or we also need to consider that where we come from, which place do we come from, what were our ancestors consuming, and what was more acceptable to them, their body, and uh, and also similarly for North Indians, it's mustard oil which is more used, so it's more adaptable by their body. And of course olive oil is not native to us, so let's not go with the health fads. And it's a good oil, but it has to be used in a certain way. As I said, something that's local, something that's close to us has to be used more frequently, and whatever is not local to us may be used a little less frequently and in lesser quantities also. So we can choose locally grown millets and grains over something like an oats or a quinoa when we are staying here. For example, ragi in Karnataka versus ragi in Kerala. Ragi is locally grown in Karnataka, so it's people here actually are able to digest and adapt, absorb more of ragi than people in Kerala, for example. So we have to understand what is grown locally and what's more acceptable to our body. Uh, and another very common thing that we observe is we South Indians have taken to eating chapatis every day for over 20 years now. Uh, and also we see a lot of cases of diabetes. Rice and chapati being very similar glycemic index and similar properties. So, and we also notice that North Indians eat wheat chapatis and they don't end up getting diabetes. So, this is a very classic example of how our local foods is more easier for us to absorb and digest. So, we can choose local. And there is a lot of variety in local foods as well.
I think what Rashmi means to say is even though North Indians eat more wheat than we do, they do end up getting diabetes. Yeah, it's not like there are communities which eat some kind of wheat all 3 meals in a day. It's not like they do not end up with diabetes. So we better choose, we stop with only this dual grains of wheat and rice, and choose more millets and also rotate all of them. I also see this start millets and completely change over to millets and shock the body. Yeah, that's it. I just wanted to add that because I hear that a lot. Okay, we eat only chapatis and how can I get diabetes? That is how I'm managing my diabetes. It is a misconception that wheat is suitable for diabetic people. Also, rava. I will not eat rice, but I will eat upma. No, that too, it is processed wheat. It is not really beneficial for diabetes. Please continue, Rashmi.
Thank you, Dr. Anupama, for adding that. So let's move on to Kala. Kala refers to the time of the day, seasons, and also our age. So when we actually consider the time of the day, the lunch time is the Pitta Kala. So we can eat our heaviest meal during this time. We are able to digest it very well because the Agni is high. So, and dinner is the Vata Kala. So we can keep our dinner lighter and not remember not to eat Shita foods. For example, eating curd at dinner is not a great idea. And of course, raw salads um, during the Vata Kala, during the dinner time, is not going to be digested very well. So it's best had uh, during the heaviest meal. It's best to have during the lunch time. And talking about seasons, in winter actually we can have heavier foods, and summer we can keep our foods lighter. We also tend to eat lesser and drink more fluids during summer. So the heavier foods during winter and the lighter foods, and winter also we can eat warmer foods during winter. Uh, and summer we can keep it lighter and cooler. So because in summer the digestion is poorer compared to winter. And when we refer to age, uh, infants and elderly people have to keep their diet more nutrient dense, and the quantity can be lesser, and the younger people can eat a little more quantity according to their age. So when we actually moderate according to the time, seasons, and our age, we can actually keep our health in a balance. Time also refers to sometimes, having regular meal timings. It helps to um, have a balance there. So some simple guidelines, Upayoga Samsars, some very simple guidelines that we all are aware of, but we tend to forget. So it's kind of a reminder, reinforcement of what we can do while eating, some simple guidelines. So firstly, I think I would recommend that we can take some deep breaths before we start eating. So when we do a belly breathing, for example, when we inhale and we breathe like children do, right? When we see children breathe, we can see their belly coming in and out, right? So as adults, we tend to actually forget to breathe like that. So we are actually shallow breathing from here. So when we notice, actually it was true that we're all breathing from here. So if we can just take a pause, take a moment before eating, and do a small belly breathing, and then start eating. What it does is it actually activates the stomach acids to digest our food better, and calms our mind and brings that mindfulness into eating. So some simple guidelines that Ayurveda talks about here is eating warm food. Um, it's always better, lighter, easier to digest. Warm, warmth, warm food also kind of is gives some warmth to us. It's kind of a comfort, because food is always talked about as a comfort factor, right? So when we eat warm food, it's much better. So it's important to include good fats into our diet. Um, Good fats like, coconut or ghee and things like this. And also eating the right amount. We talked about the quantity. Also, it's important to eat after our previous meal is digested. So sometimes we mindlessly end up eating meal one after the other, and sometimes it's too many meals in the day. So if we can pause and just be aware of when I'm feeling hungry and when my previous meal is digested, that's when my system is ready to digest another meal. So, and also do not eat incompatible foods together, and eating in a very peaceful ambience with pleasing company and cutlery. So imagine this was talked about so many years ago, and it's so much relevant today in a world where we are completely distracted by a lot of gadgets and a lot of things around. So if we can have develop the practice of slowly eating with no distractions in a peaceful ambience without much noise and with pleasing company. Yes, we do enjoy eating with people that we like to eat with, right? So with pleasing company and cutlery, it makes it better. And we should not eat very fast and also very slow. So it has to be, moderate. Both can affect our digestion. And when we are actually chewing our food with mindfulness, again, the digestion process is better because um, we are signaling the stomach to produce the stomach acid, and it's much more easier to digest. And of course, it's best to eat without talking or laughing, ideally. So again, it's all about mindful eating. So and also consider your individual needs and eat accordingly. It's very, very important, because something is good for somebody doesn't mean something is good for me. So I have to always, in every step of these principles, understand that what is my need and what is that I feel better with. Just to be aware helps. And the eighth principle is Upayokta, refers to the person who consumes the food according to the person's constitution. So, what is my constitution, whether it's Vata, Pitta, or Kapha? What food suits me? There is a very famous saying that one man's food is another man's poison. So that's very true, because I also come across in many cases that certain foods is very well digested in one person, and the same thing doesn't get digested by another person. Or some person feels great, I mean the health kind of improves with a certain food, and another person feels totally the opposite with the same kind of food. So it's important to understand what is my constitution. Here actually you can take help of the Ayurvedic doctors, and to help analyze what is your constitution and take help of what is best for your condition. If you are a healthy person, also Ayurveda, as they mentioned, that Ayurveda talks about how to take care of your health. And also if somebody is in a disease state, it also helps to take guidance from a professional here. And also eating according to the current health and disease condition, as I mentioned. So it's very important to understand my particular health condition and then address. When I eat something, it's important to be aware, to ask myself, am I able to digest this food? Um, how am I feeling, eating this particular food? So it's very important to consider this, and definitely personal unique experiences. Every person is totally unique. That's where, when I studied functional medicine, I could completely connect that aspect to Ayurveda, which is much older and much more rooted to us. It's so important to consider the individual person and customize the food, lifestyle, and medicine, Ahara, Vihaara, and Oushadha for that person. So it's important to understand my own unique experiences, even if it's a superfood, for example. If it's not suitable for me, it's not suitable. So it's important to understand what is suitable for me, what is best for me. Definitely taking help here uh, is useful. More than everything, more than anything, the the guidance that our body gives us is self-explanatory. So it's very important to be aware of what my body is actually trying to tell me. So important to listen to your body first. And who will benefit from Ayurvedic diet? As I said, anybody and everybody. And specifically, a lot of people with a lot of these health conditions see tremendous benefits when Ayurveda is incorporated with diet, lifestyle modifications, and also the Aushadha. So I myself actually sent a lot of my clients to Dr. Santosh and Dr. Anupama, and because uh, integration of food, lifestyle, and medicine together kind of brings about the healing in a much better way. Um, because also from my end, I wanted the support of Aushadha from their side, and from their end, you know they understand that the food and lifestyle plays such an important role, especially in all these conditions that we see here. And this is one question that we come across very frequently, that is Pathya permanent or temporary? How long should we follow? I will and Dr. Santosh spoke about it clearly, because Pathya is very, very important to follow until the disease comes into control. Definitely, because if the food is triggering the disease in the first place, the first thing that we do is to reduce or cut down on that food, so that the disease, we are not overburdening the body again uh, with the same food that is triggering the disease. And definitely, so until the disease comes into control, we definitely have to follow a certain Pathya. And since it's as important as the medicines, so we have to see it as a part of the healing process, because it works in combination with medicine, Pathya. So for example, in diabetes, certain foods are triggering my and worsening my condition, then it's always better to take it out and unburden my body, and the healing happens much faster with the medicines. So in many cases, we can certain foods can be reintroduced, but in moderation. In some cases, we can't completely come back to what we were actually eating. So it is, case to case basis that, we moderate on Pathya. And healthy eating is again a journey, and we can inculcate that journey in a way, and it is actually possible, it's enjoyable, it's lovely that way. And as I said, the same thing is spoken about. There is so much correlation between the functional medicine and Ayurveda, that now using food as medicine. So it's so important to look at our food and heal ourselves. Thank you to everyone. I'm sure it was, I hope, it added some value to all of you. And Dr. Anupama, would you like to add anything? Yeah.
No, we will actually discuss the basics of the Ayurvedic dietetics as told in Charaka Samhita. When we studied this, it felt like very, very simple. Now, then we entered practice and we realized how much it is actually the part of the treatment, and how this can empower the patients to, start their journey towards better health. It's empowering because they can do it themselves. And also, it's like you said, it's a journey. It's a journey of self-discovery, not just following somebody who's saying this is good and this is bad. Actually finding out for yourself what works for you, what is suitable for you. Even if all these, the Ashta, Vidhi, Visesa, Ayatanani, if you still talk about it and look at the last one, they're saying you are most important. You are the better judge. I talk about this with parents as well. And I ask them to trust the children. When they say it is enough, when they say I don't like this, trust them, because unlike us, they are still in a stage where they're mindful about how they are feeling. I feel that is the attitude we have to bring in ourselves and be centered and look into ourselves, see how we feel with a certain food or certain lifestyle, and take guidance in the beginning. Sometimes when it feels very overwhelming, you feel that you have multiple number of diseases and all of them need to be treated differently. Maybe there is something which is a common thing. Okay, the body is not seeing it as different departments. So the food and the lifestyle is what is common to everything which is happening in your body. So when the journey becomes a journey of self-discovery, I think there is a lot of scope for improvement. And that is what is long-term recovery, long-term benefit. When you carry over that knowledge about your body, that is what will bring long-term relief, not taking medicines for a long time unless it's absolutely necessary. So that is the mainstay treatment of Ayurveda. So we have started this series. We can do more about specific kinds of foods and diseases going further. Let us do one thing, Rashmi. We will send a Google form to all of them who have attended. They can send us their questions, and we can have another webinar where we'll address all these questions together, since it's already going to be an hour, and there may be many questions. I hope there are many questions. And we will do that, and we will reply all of them together in the next webinar. Is that okay?
Yes, Dr. Anupama. But I request you to give your feedback and also share your questions.
Yes.
I'll come back to you. And
Shall we? Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.